Are these new?
No.
Okay, I don't think we used these last. I think we had.
Yeah, no, we did. I kind of just do whatever easiest.
That makes sense.
But I figured out that if it's a lot easier to edit when you have two separate mic tracks, because then you can see who's talking visually, versus you have to like listen to it to like see who's talking. If you
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Whatever to make it easier to edit and create content, dude.
And it sounds about the same. I mean, those wireless ones are actually pretty good. Well, welcome back, dude.
Thanks, bro. A couple months. You're back to it, though.
Yeah, I'm sure a percentage of people remember who you are or know of you through the gym, but just give your stump speech real quick of like what you do.
Yeah, dude. Physical therapy, performance coaching, work with high-level adults and athletes, man. That's about it. That's the speech.
That's the short version.
That's the short version.
Yeah, so we had you on a bunch of episodes ago. I'll link to it so people can check it out. Which I feel like that one was a little bit more of like a general overview of your story. But we did talk like a good amount about specifics of how you like to progress people and kind of what your methods are and that sort of thing. So there's quite a bit of technical stuff in there as well that will be a good listen for people if they want to go back and check it out. So
yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So you are in the same building as us here at Lumber Capital Athletics. So your business T3, was it sports and rehab?
Rehab and performance.
Rehab and performance.
Rehab.
It is. Right,
whatever you want to call it. It's fine.
So yeah, you're based out of here, and I feel like it's been a helpful. Obviously it's great for us because we can send people to you, and we know we're not gonna like go outside our walls and potentially not come back. So it's kind of nice to keep them, everything one-stop shop a little bit, which I feel like has been a win for the people who've used you.
Cool. That's good to hear. Last time I was on here, I think it was only a couple months that I was at Lumber Capital.
Yeah.
And therefore only...
I think it was like actually before we announced that you were like, that was the announcement that you were like here. And I think we recorded it slightly before we had like officially gone through that process.
Yep. And so that was, we must have recorded in August maybe. So I've only been here for like a month or two.
Yeah.
And so therefore like only a month or two working with CrossFit athletes in injury rehab, so the last 6 months, it's definitely been a learning process. I think I did mention this on the last podcast, but CrossFit athletes they go hard, dude, and they're willing to push past sustainability, for performance, and much respect to that, and they should. That being said, it's been fun to navigate injury rehab, acute, chronic, whatever it may be. It's helped sharpen my toolbox a little bit because most of the time I can say, take a step back, maybe hold these certain things, but with CrossFit athletes, depending on the season of training, there's no time to really hold things back because there's an event maybe in a month, right? So yeah,
I mean that's one where it's the same thing of just like you're coaching people through joint stuff different times. It's like if they're okay, your shoulder's angry at you right now for whatever reason. Like it's not like some catastrophic injury. It's just something we got to work around for a while.
Yeah.
It's like, if they do have like important dates that are coming up or things, it's like just a matter of like working around a lot of that stuff. Which I'm sure is not different for like other like field sports and stuff. Like
it's about the same. Yeah.
To a degree, it's like if you've got. Like, I mean, this was certainly the way it was for me in college wrestling. It was like you just kind of slap some tape on it and get back out there and roll around.
Yep. Now I will say that I think the biggest difference that I've noticed is with field sport, they have respective times for the weight room. So you can have like a 30-minute to an hour session with somebody and like kind of dial in what you want to. But with CrossFit, like the weight room is the sport. So, some of these people are coming into the gym 5 times a week and they have jobs and families. So trying to find time to integrate, what I'm looking for.
The class goer doesn't have the same level of resources and like just like time available to them to like really always check off the boxes appropriately. And
exactly.
Like you're saying, like some people, they maybe want to be in athlete mode all the time, but then it's like if you're not fully healthy and you're continuing to kind of push through that, that's when people get into hot water with stuff. So
yep.
I think that's probably part of your job here as well. I mean, it's, part of Stacy and I and the other coaches' jobs as well. It's like, make sure you're talking to people to like, hey, like this is, like if you're dealing with this isn't something you push through. Like we modify around that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So I think some of that's just like athlete IQ, understanding of like where they need to be at.
Definitely, dude. And I have much respect for you and your programming, as I've seen over the last 6 to 9 months. Like, I don't have anything to really base it on because I haven't worked in a different CrossFit gym, but I can tell that, you scale it appropriately. Your program is intentionally variable, so it's not just like a bunch of stuff thrown in there just for novelty's sake, but like it's intentionally variable. So you're getting people in good positions with right, undulating intensities and volume. So as much as CrossFit gets sometimes a bad rap, and I think that's a stereotype, you do a good job at mitigating some of the injury risk that's associated with it.
Yeah. I've told people before, I was like, you could go to like curves and like the risk is like incredibly low, but like the amount of like adaptation you're going to get out is just super low as well.
Right.
So it's like, I think, people come in, they train hard, like they get good results out of it, but then it's also just like you got to monitor yourself a little bit more because it's a lot easier to overreach. It's
a good point. 100% of the time, people that come into a workout are crossing the threshold for adaptation, in this gym. So, yeah.
Yeah, which is not always the case other places. I mean, sometimes people are just so detrained that maybe they get a decent stimulus out of doing like minimal work.
Yeah.
But like at a certain point, a lot of people, they've been going to the gym for the last 2-3 years and they do their routine and it's like very stagnant. And they frankly just don't push very hard. And then it's like, I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but like a good chunk of gym goers, like that's the way it is.
Right.
You kind of have to have a reason for a lot of people to kind of push beyond that.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. We kind of want to talk today about, like sports performance, like training athletes.
Yeah.
Now that we just talked about CrossFitters a bunch, let's switch it over to more traditional sports.
Yeah. There are some laterals though, like in what you were mentioning, like the idea of not crossing adaptation, crossing that threshold with CrossFit athletes. I see that oftentimes in sports performance training too. Just want to throw that out there. I mean, one of the things that we are going to talk about is sports specificity versus, a generalized principles-based approach. And sometimes with that sports specificity, I see just a bunch of stuff that doesn't actually create adaptation, which I'm sure you've seen as well.
Yep. Yeah, I forget who was talking about this. So I can't credit the person. It wasn't my original idea, but basically someone was like, that people see like this exercise that looks crazy, that is like super complicated, and there's like all this instability, and they think that like inherently that's gonna like either make them better or give them a better result, and it's like almost always it's the opposite.
It's almost always the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen this quite a bit in like sports rehab. I feel like with strength and conditioning coaches, most of the time they're getting athletes loaded up 80+%. They're getting them in positions. They're making them work hard enough that there's actually like a stimulus.
Yep.
But in sports rehab, sometimes there's, like you mentioned, maybe the athlete is a soccer player, so they're balancing on a Bosu ball with 18 bands, pulling them in different directions while heading a soccer ball, right? It's like all in the name of like soccer specificity.
Right.
And the athlete probably got worse by doing that. So they didn't change anything about the athlete.
Yep.
And I think it comes down to asking like the question, like, why is the athlete in the weight room? And if it's not to recreate sport. That's simply not what it is. And so I think that's probably where a lot of people get caught up, is trying to like recreate the sport in the weight room.
I think initially that makes sense. Like, I think if someone was sitting here and being like, well, obviously you want to try to create things that mimic their sport as closely as possible, I think a lot of people would be like nodding their head along with that. So like, why is that not the case? Like, why, if I'm a I don't know, let's say I'm a wrestler, just because that's an easy example for me because I wrestled. It's like, should I be doing like cable snap downs because like that's like the specific motion that I'm doing in wrestling. And if not, like why?
Yeah. Maybe at some point, yes. You know, if you're coming back from an injury, you need to introduce a stimulus again. But when you look at an athlete coming into the facility, you have two choices. It's either sport specific or athlete specific, and I tend to gravitate towards being athlete specific. And sometimes that just doesn't. A cable snap down for a wrestler is just not needed. You know, maybe they're really, really good at producing that force or yielding certain forces, and a physical quality, maybe an energy system like their aerobic conditioning is lacking. And so focusing more time on that makes a lot more sense than making it sport specific just because you're trying to make it sport specific.
Yeah. I think oftentimes if you're just thinking of like this like super like vaguely like this mythical person that's in front of you, it's like, that sounds great, Trent. Why don't we do the cable snap down, where it's like, the wrestler that comes in, a high school sophomore, he's lifted weights for like 18 months, and it was like a program that the coach just kind of dreamt up one day or something. The odds of him like moving with super great quality, that he has like great force production and like classic lifts, is super low. Like the likelihood of like for example, I have a girl I train, she's like middle school age now, and we were talking about like building her jumping abilities, and she was like, well, actually I was talking to her dad, and her dad was like, yeah, I heard like, it's great to get like a lot of force production if you can do like these low box step ups with like a heavier weight. And I was like, yeah, like we certainly do that at some point. We actually have done that. But it was like, also we just need to be like getting her comfortable squatting through a full range of motion, because at the time she was having some like back pain and like, not the best positions on squatting. And I was like, well, thinking about her long-term development, I just want her to move well as a human being, like through all the patterns, and like be able to transmit force appropriately through all of them. And then it's like, if we're checking off all those boxes, then like you can be a little bit more specific at certain times, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Don't lead with complexity, I guess,
Yeah, exactly. I guess
it.
that's like the principle. It's like you start with like the most foundational basic stuff.
Right.
Because chances are they're not doing that appropriately.
And even if they are, it's the foundational stuff, like why change up, or why try to make the principles more complicated than they are. And of course exercise and adaptation and physiology is complex, but it boils down to like a few principles that like just guide decision making, and that's it. So I forget who said it, but principles are few, methods are many. So like if you just stick to the principles of strength and conditioning and the athlete in front of you, you can decide like some methods you want to use, and then you can get creative if you know the principles. But don't let creativity and complexity lead before the basics and the principles are established.
Yeah. I mean, even if you had like a D1 football player who's been in the weight room for 6-8 years and is incredibly strong, naturally understands like triple extension and producing force and that kind of stuff, like Saquon Barkley, right? If we like just go to the complete extreme.
Yep.
Like think about somebody like that. It's like at the end of the day, like this is still the thing that is going to get him the best effect is like the basics, because like that's where he can produce the most force. That's where he's going to be like the strongest. And again, for somebody like that, like, okay, you can probably put in a little bit more of your pet exercises on that type of stuff.
Absolutely.
Provided the foundation's still there. But it's like, again, the number of people that you deal with like on a normal basis that fit into that mold is just so incredibly slim.
It's slim, yeah. And I mean, part of being athlete specific is being sport specific. Like Saquon's a football player. I have a few soccer players that I'm working with right now. Like it'd be bad if I didn't consider their sport at all, but like making that like the whole focus of your training. Yeah. I don't know if it's because we're trying to be more than we are for the athlete.
I think that's usually,
you know what I'm saying?
What it comes down to, yeah.
The athlete has their coaches, their parents, their teammates, fans, the opponents, their AAU team they play with 2 months in the summer, and then us. You know, so like trying to, I guess, knowing our place in their life, I think makes it to cut out some of the nonsense and the noise and just giving them what they need.
Yeah, that girl I was talking about before, I mean, she's been working with me for like years. So it's like, I know that like okay, if we work on cleans, for example, it's not like you're just going to go run off in 3 months and I'm not going to be able to work with you anymore. It's like, there's certain things that, like, okay, we have a nice long runway that we've built up, all this stuff, where we can start to play with certain things a little bit more, knowing that, like, the foundations are always going to be there, and not, like, I'm actually going to have to say in what that is.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, a good chunk of the time, like, we have an avatar that we're going to talk through here eventually. I'm a soccer player, but, like, for example, the odds of you getting to work with this person year-round for 4 years is very low.
It's very low most of the time, yeah.
I mean, hopefully people understand, like, you know, parents, because they're typically the ones paying for kids to get training, like, hopefully, like, usually if they understand the value of it and they, like, prioritize it, then it's something where it can last. But, like, I mean, like we're going to talk about, like, there's so much variability in, like, what, like, where they're living, what teams they're playing with, their different seasons, that it's like, it's very easy to have the strength conditioning just get thrown out first thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you get to work with, okay, we're 8 sessions in, and all of a sudden, like, okay, now, you know, okay, this session's getting cut out, we're moving around here, or, like, whatever. It's just, like, there's a lot of stuff that can just kind of throw a wrench into things, too, that doesn't give you, like, an optimal runway, which is, like, all the more reason to focus on the basics.
100%. Yeah, and, you know, to beat a dead horse, if you are focusing on the basics, you can make some nice changes and modifications based on where they're at in their season or the year, right? Like, you know, we know that we want them to get a certain amount of plyometric contractions in their tendons, and we want them to touch 85% of their squat max, even if they're in season. And so, like, maybe we cut out some volume during season and they only do 2 days of strength training and plyometric workouts that while in season. It's like, cool, we're still crossing the threshold for adaptation there. We're making a difference for this athlete. It just looks a little different, and that's because we're sticking to the principles, you know.
One of the notes we have here is basically, like, what training qualities you're looking to see. So I'm kind of curious as to your thoughts as to, like, are there specific metrics or more broad qualities that you just like all athletes to see, or is it, again, could it be varied by sport, if you just want to dive into that?
Yeah. I guess starting with, like, quantitative metrics that I like to track, I use the isometric mid-thigh pull quite a bit. So I have the dynamometer.
I want to do that sometime.
Dude, you'd probably break the dynamometer. Actually, the one I have is it goes up to 500 kilos of force produced. So
as long as I'm not
whatever that
Eddie Hall or Thor.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I like to track it. Some athletes, I use it every 3 months just to make sure that, like, objectively, are we getting stronger? Is their peak force improving? But some athletes, I use it on a weekly basis, especially in season, for subjective readiness for that workout. Objective readiness. So I love the IMTP, the isometric mid-thigh pull. And then I'll use, like, reactive strength a little bit. So I'll standardize maybe like a knee height platform, and I'll use an app that records their reactive strength from a drop jump off of that platform, and looking for a certain number maybe that they got last week or they got 3 months ago, just making sure that, like, is their reactive strength getting better from 3 months ago, or are they just maintaining their reactive strength from last week? Okay, cool, let's rip it today. So those are two, like, objective KPIs, I guess, I track acutely and over time.
I can't say I have anything like that objective that I have across the board. Like,
well, it's nice. I invest in the equipment, and so I try to use it to get my money's worth,
sure.
But not necessary. Just
yeah. But even, like, I've, for example, used vertical jump for both readiness, like, for a session, plus like long-term development, to see, like, you know, hopefully it's something that can continue to trend up. And it's just like, unless you have, like, the right equipment for it, it makes it where it's just kind of challenging to do, and it's kind of cumbersome. Like, you're getting chalk on your hand and slapping the wall, and then, like, trying to get out a tape measure and measure it. It's like, it ends up being a pain to try to do on a regular basis. Whereas, like Day, one of the coaches was Zor, she, you know, her university's got, like, force plates, so they just, like, they can run that stuff, like, all the time.
So sick.
Makes it very simple. So you could just like do the same warm up protocol every time, do like a counter jump, and like that's your readiness test, right? It's
Standardize
super
it.
easy. Yeah. Yep. Whereas like, yeah, obviously it'd be nice there'd be probably a number of things that I would probably use a little bit more if we, or had a budget of a university like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, for like most of it, it's just like I want to see progression for people.
That's it.
Like that again, for most people, they're not proficient in the basics. If I'm just being honest, like there's things that like I was joking with you. I've done, my 3-point dumbbell row for 19 or 20 years now.
S tier exercise, by the way.
And I was like, yeah, I mean there's certain patterns, like I've been lifting for 2 decades, and it's like there's still things that I can improve that are just like basic things, like function wise.
Yeah.
It's like, it would be wrong of me to skip over the basics to go after some of the fancy stuff. And
right.
I think I would say like everybody, I'm sure there'd be an exception, but I'll just make it a blanket statement. I think everybody that would come to me that's like a sports performance client who's under 22, they probably just have some sort of pattern or movement that is not where it needs to be, of like the basics. Not
Absolutely.
even like Olympic lifts or things, like just like hinge, squat, press, pull, like for the very basics, they probably aren't up to snuff on one of those.
Right.
And it's like, if we can see those things week over week continue to go up,
that's objective.
Then it's
metrics.
Yeah.
And not everything needs to be objective either. Like the other side of the quantitative metrics is qualitative metrics. So does the athlete, like, do they enjoy what you're doing? Do they feel good with what you're giving them? And do they look good? Do they look like they're getting into the positions you're looking for? If that's there, like, arguably that probably matters more than any objective test I could give them, for long-term performance and for making sure that like the progressive overstimulus happens. It's, do they look good? Do they feel good?
Yeah.
Check,
Are you more of a macro to micro type person or a micro to macro type person? Meaning that like, would you do like a movement strain and look at like joint by joint and then have the person squat? Or would you have the person squat and then like troubleshoot from there?
The latter, for sure.
So I was always the other way around, like initially, because that's the way I was kind of taught to do things. And then I was like, I'm just wasting my time a lot here. I was like, let me just like see you move. Like, I coach a lot of CrossFitters, so it's like, let me see you do your sport movements. And then it's like, okay, I know if like certain things are showing up that it's like, okay, like 9 out of 10 times, like this is what you're dealing with.
Yeah,
restriction wise. So then it just kind of makes it simple.
The best assessment is the skill itself that you're looking after. So yeah, rather than break, sometimes I'll throw a 90-90 to see if somebody's hip rotation is lacking one side or the other, or throw them a hip airplane to see if they can maintain pelvic stability. But like for the most part, it's get into a squat, a hinge, a press, a pull. Can you create like force into the ground? All right, good. That's the test. Yep. So yeah, I'm fully with you on that.
Cool. Let's dive into our avatar here. So the avatar that we made up.
Yeah.
Lily is her name. 19-year-old female athlete. D3 soccer defender is her position. She's had limited strength training and weight room experience. And currently, she is in off-season mode, so she's not like competing actively. So she's got off-season practices with her team that are obviously sports-specific to soccer, and then she's got 3 sessions per week with one of us. Basic needs here, or needs basic strength training exposure, because again, she hasn't had a background in it. She's done some, but again, there's probably a lot of things that she can continue to improve. Jumping and landing mechanics in practice, repeat sprint ability because she's playing a soccer. Yeah, you want to dive into yours?
Sure, man. Start with the skeleton.
Yeah, go for it.
Word. Yeah, so, and I'm sure you could also test this. I feel like I have 4 athletes right now with this exact avatar, which is cool. And this is probably a good skill that I need to practice more, is just like creating different scenarios and, programming them in different ways. And yeah, I like it. So biggest considerations for me in this scenario, would really for any athlete, would be training age and injury history. Training age, we know that she has some limited experience, and then injury history, we didn't really touch on that. But of course, that would change our approach in some way, in some capacity. Big picture, 2 sprint sessions weekly. That's, I think, the minimum dose. So acceleration focus with, maybe this is on a separate day compared to her 3 days in the weight room. Maybe she's getting that sprint dosage in her sport sessions that she's doing, and we don't necessarily need it. I don't know, but nonetheless, I think 2 sprint sessions a week would be the minimum dose for her.
But this is actually pretty accurate, because most of the time, if you're working with an athlete, you're not actually communicating with your sports-specific coach most of the time.
Most of the time, no. Yeah.
They're, okay, Lily, what do you think you're going to do in practice? And she's like, well, we usually do some drills, and then sometimes we do some conditioning at the end, and with scrimmage or whatever, right? And they don't really, they have an idea, but they don't really know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And when it comes, I guess in that scenario, I think when it comes to like sprint work, focusing on acceleration is really big, because they're probably getting sprint work in their sport, right? Of course. Yeah. So breaking it down and making sprinting a skill for them is where I think we'll have the most value there. And then, so 3 weekly sessions. I decided to go with a full body focus since they're kind of newish to the weight room. They're off season. Establish some volume and intensity. So volume before intensity. So, get them used to the amount of work they're doing before we really start to get up into like an 80 to 90% percent range. Yeah, and that's, I guess, the big skeleton approach. I have, some lower body, upper body compounds, 3 days of spine mobility work, 2 days of focus on lower accessory, 1 day focus on upper accessory. I just got into the weeds a little bit there, but yeah, it's my skeleton.
Cool. Yeah, let's dive into your training day.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, day B. Got an A block of a warm-up routine, assault bike 5 minutes, probably talk test, get their heart rate up a little bit, but don't feel like they're gassing themselves out. And then a circuit of, I have mobility, stability, and then some type of like skill that they can kind of surf. I like the side bends just to get some spine movement into the warm-up. Got some pelvic stability with the hip airplanes, and then I love the front foot elevated split squat iso for soccer players. Soccer players have to produce force on their back leg when they're kicking, so the front foot elevated shifts center of mass back. They can work really hard on their back leg for 20 seconds. B block, plyometric work. So given that she's relatively new to the weight room, I'm assuming that we need to practice that short ground contact time, that short stretch shortening cycle. So band assisted leaps is probably the biggest one here for me. Having her, minimize her ground contact time, anticipate the floor, attack the floor with some assistance from the bands, create stiff knees, stiff ankles, and then right into an exercise that...
You don't want stiff knees and ankles, Trent.
Yeah, okay. Just like, knee valgus is like the devil. So then right after that, get into some exercise where like it's less about stiff joints and it's less about ground contact time and more about like just sinking into her lower body and yielding forces. At this point, she's probably ready to rock. So, Olympic lifting, the minimum dose. And this is something I've implemented more frequently as of late, just because I've seen the value in Olympic lifting and the efficiency for peak power. So, tall muscle cleans or upright rows or, a tall clean, something in that capacity where she can practice the skill, and then some hang power cleans for rapid fire 10 doubles every 60 seconds. D block, I have her upper and her lower body compound. Love the B stance dual kettlebell RDL to get her into a not just a double leg stance, so a little bit of a staggered stance. Practice the skill of hinging. Hopefully she loads it up to RPE 7, 8, somewhere around there, and then dumbbell bench press, because why not? And then E block. We got a loaded spine movement, GHD side bends. That could be Russian twists. That could be GHD sit-ups, something that gets her spine moving and loaded at end ranges. And then superset with the hamstring glider. I was thinking about the gym that we have here, and we don't have a hamstring curl machine, obviously. So,
Yeah.
It could be a hamstring curl machine, hamstring glider, maybe some Nordic curls, shortened range of motion, things like that. But that's my block. That's day B.
One of the cool things, Coach RX, as I mentioned, they're our podcast sponsor, and one of the things that's pretty cool is that you can go into like a client's program and just hit export and like select the date ranges. And I actually did this with you earlier in the week. We were talking about one of my clients who's dealing with some knee pain, and I basically just went in and clicked the date range, hit export, and just email it to you, and it's like branded with my company, and it's got like the client's name and their info, and it's like all kind of formatted nicely without me having to go and create that, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty sick.
So, we got coaches who want to check out Coach RX. You can get a 14-day free trial if they want to, hit that link below.
Talking to me?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was actually like, you know what? Like, we had a conversation about that like the other week, and I was like, you know what? No, I actually didn't really know the pricing structure difference of where you were at versus Coach RX, because I hadn't been on that platform, and I know it's higher. So
the platform I work
Yes.
with is higher. Yeah, and I just met another coach a couple weeks ago who was praising Coach RX.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying it's solid.
in like PT realm or
Performance World.
Yeah.
He's out in Tampa. I met him, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, Coach RX, man." So
there you go.
yeah, stars are aligning.
Yeah. Okay, even though I don't like it, I'd probably assume that they would do like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, kind of like put the soccer work on like their the biggest, easiest time slots of the week. Which probably means that we get like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday type thing. So session 1, sprints, squats, rotational work, pressing and pulling work. Day 2, plyometrics, hinging and pulling. And then day 3 is like more agility, change of direction type work. Single leg, a secondary hinge, which like typically just means like something that is not like a bilateral loaded hinge. Like, probably 8 out of 10 times I'm probably just starting most athletes on like an RDL. So that'll probably be like their like day 2 work. So then it's like you could either give I'd probably give either as a single leg hinging variation or like something that's like more hip extension based, which I have them doing a hip thrust in this one, which is, again, it's like a hinge, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah, short range of motion.
Yeah.
You can load it up a little bit more.
Yep. And then pressing and conditioning on that leg. I was like most excited about this third session, which is why I built this one out, but I think this is probably the least representative of what like a normal program would look like for them, because it is like day 3, it's just like a little bit more like odds and ends, and also they're getting the repeat sprint ability work, which is like pretty tough. Well, it's tough conditioning, which again is probably not something I'm going to be doing throughout the week. But let's just say that we get them on Saturday, and then they have a rest day on Sunday. They're not playing soccer again until Monday. They're going to be like recharged and ready to go at that point. So getting some like something that is like there's really no skill involved. Relative, like obviously sprinting is a skill, but like they're not running with a ball or dodging opponents or something like that, right? They're just focusing on running and trying to like nail their metrics. So that's a little bit of context for day 3 here. 3-minute easy bike, 3-minute dynamic run prep. So that's just like high knees, butt kickers, shuttle. Why am I blanking on the word? Like shuffle. There it is. Shuffle. Okay. That's the word.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, right? Like all those kind of basic, calisthenics, but like run-based calisthenics.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go into what we call her, Lily?
Lily.
Lily's agility and change direction work every 20 seconds for 5 sets. 8 pogo hops, which I think this is essentially just like your crescendo leaps that you had in yours. So I have a note to build effort inter and intra set. So basically, as you're getting deeper into that rep range every time, so you got 8 reps, you're starting nice and easy, and you're building the size of those each time.
That's exactly the
same. And then across each set, you're building the effort as you're getting more warm. So that last set is going to be like a really high effort set.
Now, is that single leg or double leg?
Double.
Okay.
Yeah. And then EMOM for 6 minutes, so that's every minute on the minute. minute 1 will be a 30-meter sprint at a ramping effort. So they're doing that 3 total times, so 70, 80, and 90% effort respectively. And then the even minutes will be 8 skater jumps. So there's your single leg kind of, lateral aspect of the hip, but like more of a, obviously, a plyometric way. 80, 90, 100% by minute.
Nice.
And then a shuttle sprint, 4 by 15 feet. So again, that's obviously like, you don't even get up to speed there. You're just focusing on like, again, like just as it sounds like changing directions a lot. So I'd probably like set out 2 cones or something, have them go back and forth and touching those, just moving as fast as they can. Again, you're never going to get up to like, high joint velocities really with that. It's just kind of, just as it sounds like, more agility based work. Whereas like likely that first day I'd probably get them at least sprinting 40 meters or more, with like where they get into more of like how the mechanics change when you get up to like top speed. More of like actually high speed,
like max velocity speed.
Velocity, yeah. So again, that's not going to take super long. You're looking at maybe 20 minutes to get through all that. And then next is single leg, secondary hinge and pressing. Starting off with a rear leg elevated split squat. Hand supported, just to take out some of the balance component for that. I really like these. I haven't done them in a while, but there's something where it's like you get a really good effect. You can stay in the position you want, so you're hitting both quad and the glute pretty effectively. And obviously it's in a split stance where like day 1 would have just been a bilateral squat. So varying it a bit, but still hitting the same musculature. B, barbell hip thrust, 3 sets of 8 to 10. Again, for most of these, if I didn't say, I'm just looking for like a moderately tough type effort. Again, this is probably something where like I would start just like conservative, like week 1, just like, all right, go to like a 6 out of 10. And then like I'll just see what they do, and I'll just like, okay, mild increase.
Yeah.
See what it is the next week, mild increase, and then it's just like you keep doing that until you like kind of run out of runway for me.
Yep.
And then you're gonna switch it up, or change up either the exercise or the the rep range or something about it where you can keep progressing. So, and then we got a Russian kettlebell swing, supersetted with a dumbbell push press. Not that the hip extension here is exactly the same, but they both are definitely getting hip extension. So it's like a good way to kind of exaggerate the extension side of things for both of those exercises. And then it's also kind of a bridge between the hinging work and then the strict pressing work, which is to follow, which is a tall kneeling landmine press, which is obviously you're not using your legs there. So it's just straight pressing. And again, 3 sets, 8 to 12 reps each, moderately heavy. And then the fun part that I got to throw in on day 3, which is repeat sprint ability. Again, this isn't something like, obviously I don't know the exact abilities of this person, but I had to kind of assume things. Again, this would definitely not be week 1. This would be like week 5 or 6 sort of thing, where it's like probably, you may, depending on how it goes, you could either run it for 1 or 2 more weeks or then deload the person and switch it up after that. But again, basically what I would have done in weeks prior would be like get an idea of what they're capable of. That's like a moderate effort, and then just slowly ramp it up where, again, you're not just butting right up against their capacity the very first week. This usually doesn't go super well. And unless they understand like why, they're probably not going to be super committed to actually doing it that way.
No, you're probably right. Yeah.
So every 50 seconds until failure, 50-meter run at 11 seconds or less. So basically they got to go from the top of the interval to the 11-second mark, and they got to get past the 50-meter mark by that time. And then they just got to get back to the start line before the next, it was originally an EMOM each interval, let's call it. So again, the idea being that they're going to have to at least jog some of that to get back in time. Where it might be like a walk jog, it might be like they jog back and have a little bit of rest time before they go again. But it's going to feel very rushed. And again, they're going to go until either they can't do it anymore, either they don't get back in just wouldn't be able to hit the 11-second mark. And then they get capped at 20 reps. So whichever comes first, either them failing or 20 total of those intervals.
Nice. I like the last piece of it. You're gamifying the sprint a little bit, and athletes love when
Yeah.
some form of the strength conditioning work is gamified. It's like a challenge for that.
Yeah, it's also like auto-regulated where it's one, like I don't exactly know their abilities, so I can't guess it 100% right every time, especially when you're just like, this is high effort work, so you're not going to get it exactly right every time.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it's like, you don't know exactly, like their abilities, but then also like their readiness will change a bit. So I do this kind of thing a lot with the CrossFit athletes I work with, where the conditioning is going to be really hard. It's like, either it's something as simple as like their sport work where it's like 5 rounds per time or an AMRAP or something, but I try to reserve those for either certain spots in the week or like once they're like highly motivated to do something, then that's a good time to do it. But like for other things, that like to put a little bit of auto regulation on it, for I don't have a better word for that, but it's like based on how capable they come into the session determines how much work they get in, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, would you be finding room throughout the week for more sprint work, or is this the totality of your sprint work in the week?
No, like day one would definitely be like some, again, higher velocity based sprinting. So just like much more unfatigued, like complete rest, maybe 40 to 50 meter type range, because that's like the longest sprint probably you're going to get as a soccer player. And then like full rest. So like every 2 minutes for 5 or 6 sets. Like, let's call it a 50 meter sprint at max effort. And it's like the first 2 you can ramp, and then the next 4 or 5 is max effort.
Got you.
Yeah.
So the sprint work in this session, of course, you're still getting better at sprinting, but it's also kind of integrated into conditioning.
So it's like, just as like repeat sprintability is what I call it. You call it like sprint endurance.
Yeah.
Right.
Got you.
Yeah. Ability to maintain high turnover at like slightly sub-maximal paces and do it again and again. Yeah. Most of the time, like if you're a soccer player, you're running 10 to 20 meters. And then you're jogging and walking and jogging and walking, and then you sprint 10 to 20, and then you jog and you walk and jog and you walk. And then occasionally you have a long run or something, right? But that's pretty infrequent. So, other days would be much more unfatigued because they're already going to get a lot of that kind of stuff in their sport practice. So it's like I would focus much more on unfatigued, high effort stuff, whether it's plyos or sprints. And pretty much across the board, like most of the stuff, I'm not going to probably do much conditioning with them at all, because it's like you only get so much time with them. 3 sessions a week is not a lot for strength conditioning, so It's like with that much, it's like you're spending most of your time on like the highest leverage stuff.
Mm-hmm. The big rocks for sure. Yeah, I like it, dude. I guess one thing that I should have probably included was some amount of sprint work, but it wouldn't have looked different than yours, really. I mean, I probably would have gone with the route of the higher rest and like focusing more on like breaking sprinting down a little bit more. But it would definitely
like sprint drills and things.
I would say sprint drills, like getting them better at acceleration for the bulk of the time I have for them.
Yeah.
And maybe I would have taken some of the plyos away then, but I'm looking at mine right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
No, I mean, I think honestly our programs weren't, I mean, I know I threw in the day 3 like repeat sprintability thing, which was just kind of a fun thing for me to do.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think they were very similar.
Pretty similar.
Yeah. In the sense that it was like you're probably hitting patterns at least once per week. Up front, it's like, heart rate elevation, getting the temp up, some movement prep, plyos and sprint work, and then it's like the biggest, most important lifting stuff, and then sort of like the odds and ends afterwards a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. We both have movements where the spine changes shape. They load up the upper body, they load up the lower body. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I'm looking at mine and then looking at yours, like, these could be 2 workouts out of the 3 for somebody's week, for Lily's week.
Yeah.
Because it would actually work pretty well.
Yeah, I feel like as long as you've got like some of like the basic patterns in there for the lifting stuff, and obviously like if they're a field sport athlete, you're gonna have them sprinting and doing change direction work on plyos if you're good at what you do.
Yeah.
So then it's like there's only so many ways that you can do that inappropriately, I guess. Yeah. I'm sure people can screw it up. I should not say that, but
well, I will say like barbell back squats get a ton of hype, especially in the strength and conditioning space for like sports. And they're fantastic because they're the most loadable form of a squat, loadable variation of a squat, but rarely am I prescribing barbell back squats to my newer athletes because it's not really conducive to a squat pattern. And I guess like what is a squat pattern? It's a vertical translation of the pelvis. So some people can, and of course a barbell back squat's always going to be hingier than a front squat, just given the nature of the weight. But if I'm looking to like practice the vertical pattern, the squat pattern with an athlete, especially a newer athlete to the weight room, I'm probably not choosing a barbell back squat all the time, So like some maybe anterior front loaded squat where they can get maybe heels elevated even, it's not cheating, getting the vertical translation of that pelvis and like an upright torso.
Yeah, I think I've gone to that again, probably 8 out of 10 times when I'm starting with somebody fresh. They're probably getting like an anterior loaded squat. Probably just a goblet squat, to be honest.
Probably a goblet squat, yeah.
Yeah, because that like it's the way to squat where like almost like even if you've got some hip restrictions, you can kind of hide things a little bit more, like hide in like a positive way. Like you can still like move appropriately.
Yeah.
With like a goblet squat, whereas if you like put your hands up by your shoulders in a back squat, like not only do you have to like learn how to, well, you have to know already how to brace a little bit differently, and it also just like throws off the balance of the movement a lot more. Yeah. And a lot of people, like you were saying, they don't have years of experience squatting, like they don't know how to do it.
You fold like a lawn chair, all of a sudden you hinge, right? Like yeah, and of course like I said, a barbell back squat, there's going to be some hinge to it. But if we're looking to train a squat pattern, we have a hinge pattern on day 2, day 1, whatever. Let's not double dip for this athlete,
Yeah, and it's also like, it's the same reason why I primarily give RDLs for athletes, like, especially, again, like, most traditional sport athletes, I'm giving barbell RDLs more so than deadlifts, especially to start off, right? They might eventually get to a deadlift. And if they really are like missing that because they want that, that's something we could talk about and they'll probably get thrown in. But if it's just like, again, I have an avatar in front of me, it's like, are they getting a deadlift or an RDL? It's like most of the time, like basically because of one, like what I want out of it. Like I want to load the hamstring and I want to work on a hinge, which like an RDL is obviously a great way to do that.
Yep.
And then it's also like the likelihood of them having DOMs that affects their performance is just so much lower in like a RDL versus a deadlift, right? Like the likelihood of them, like I'm not somebody who like gets really worked up about like people getting injured. Like I'm not like super averse to like people doing deadlifts or back squats because I'm worried about them being injured because if they get those, they're ready for those.
Yeah.
But it's like that's like the amount of like the way it loads the spine and like the absolute loads that you can use are just going to be heavier. So then it's like, not that that's wrong, but there's also like a time and a place for it. Where
there's a time and a place.
Yeah, if you're trying to work on, if you're trying to have meaningful sport practice outside of that, it's also just like at a certain point, how much do you need to be deadlifting?
Exactly, and that goes back to like sticking to the principles, right? Like you when building this weekly program for the client, the athlete, that there are certain movement patterns that you want hit, and that you have 3 days per week to do it. You necessarily don't want to double dip. It's like, I know that a hinge pattern needs to be in here, and so an RDL is going to fit that script because I have an anterior loaded squat that's going to be more of a vertical pattern. So yeah, absolutely, I like it.
People want to be trained by the one and only Trent. Where do they go? Where do they reach out to you?
IG is probably the best option. Trent Woolcock, DPT. Facebook, I think it's Trent and Woolcock, and I have a website, t3sportsrehab.com. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, maybe try it out.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks. That was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.